Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lords of Limited. My name is Ben Warney, and joining me on the line, as always, Mr. Ethan All Fate Scroll Sachs.
Oh, that wasn't on my list. I was guessing between two cards that I was going to be introduced as, and it was not the scroll.
What were the other two cards on the line?
A card that I'm going to try and used car salesman to you later, which is Gravpack Monoist, and the card that I am known to love, Biosynthetic Burst. I
Oh,
didn't know if you
good.
were going to choose violence this morning or not.
No violence. We're getting things off on a positive note. I know you are an All Fate Scroll stan. I'm not a believer in the card, but I think I'm curious about what you're doing with it. Like, I'm excited to talk about it this episode.
Cool. Yeah, I think All Fate Scroll I've had a chance to play with a few times, and it also feels like it's a card when a draft is going a type of way, which is to say maybe poorly. It's a card that I have my eye on to like sort of tie the room together. So I like the scroll. That's the 3 mana rock. I'm ready to say that the year of the Manolith is back, and I guess it just is the year of the Manolith because I was a Blitzball believer. It just wasn't doing what like Dragonstorm Globe or Starting Column was doing in the previous sets. But I feel like we've had good to great Manoliths in every set so far.
I mean, I feel like every Manolith after the globe could have fallen flat, and it still would have been the year of the Manolith because no other year has had two awesome Manoliths in it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. That's true. Ben and our listeners, let's pour one out for Ben and his freedom because school's back.
School's back. It's rough. We
And
started on Wednesday last week, 3 days. It's a lot. It's a lot of kids.
I just have the one. I don't know what it's like. I just have the one.
That's a as a teaser. That's a scenario I have for you in Lords Unlimited. I'm going to present the first day of school to you and see what you think you can get accomplished in the time frame that's given to you
Oh my
with the
gosh.
sixth grade band.
Oh no. I'm so nervous. I will be taking attendance and that's it, probably, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Did you get to do much magic this week at all? I'm sure probably in the latter half of the week, not so much with school, but were you able to play at all?
Latter half, not so much. I did some drafts earlier in the week on Monday, Tuesday, and then last night I promptly lost 18,000 gems doing some
Oh
collectors
no.
arena direct entries. It was like I think I felt finally how a gambler feels. Like I did the one,
Mhm.
and I was like, whoa, that went quick. Okay, I lost 6,000 gems. No big deal. No big deal. I'm good at magic. And entered again and promptly one two'd in like about 10 minutes again. And I was like, okay, no worries. Got some bad pools. Like, I got this. I'm good at magic. And entered again, even though I didn't really want to play. And I don't want collector's booster boxes. I don't know what happened to me. And so I entered a third time. And it was both my first two sealed pools were bad. And the third one, I think, was the worst sealed pool I've ever had in my
Oh my
entire life.
god.
And I promptly went 0-2 in about 5 minutes and was like, okay, that was unlucky. I think I'm leaving the casino now and I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah, but like you're not a gambler because the gambler would be like, "Well, I'm sure I'll get lucky in my next pool."
But I felt that impulse. That was why I was like, nope, going to bed. I felt that impulse.
Yeah.
And I don't normally feel that type of impulse. And I felt that. And I was like, nope, don't love that. We're exiting this
Yeah.
program.
Good for you. Good for you. I also came out a loser. And I don't even know why I did it because I don't want the boxes and best of one sealed. You could not pick a format that I want to do less
Well,
than
that was
best
the
of
really weird
unsealed.
thing was after the second one, I was like, oh, this format has to be atrocious for sealed because it's just
Yeah.
what you open. Like
There's no fixing.
there's
Yeah.
no fixing, and the good cards are insane, and the
Uh-huh.
bad cards are terrible. Like it's truly the sealed lottery with this format.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But yeah, I mean
then I pressed go again, and then I rang the slot machine again after that realization.
let's go. Let's go. All right. Well, we got some sort of smattering. I mean, obviously, we'll do format check in. It's still week two, though. Even though it's only week two, it does feel I don't have a ton. Like I've been playing a lot, but I don't have a ton of new things to say from last week. Like I still feel a lot of the things that I felt last week, and I don't feel like I have any big updates about my views on the format.
I agree. I feel similarly, and I haven't played as much, which is why I went on Second Team Lands for a second time this format, just to like look and see what was happening, to see if anything crazy happened while I hadn't been able to play for 3 or 4 days. But I do think we have a lot more to delve into about the why we feel the way we feel, and I think that's what we're going to get into this episode. And I am very excited to like have a deep conversation about that with you.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll do a little housekeeping and then we will dive in to the meat of the episode. Let's chat about the Patreon page. Patreon.com/Lords of Limited is where folks can go to give back to the show if they so choose. The show will, of course, always be free, but we have some perks over at the Patreon we want to shout out. One is access to our Discord, and the other is access to our podcast feed, where you get not only this episode a day early ad free, but you also get access to our bonus episode every week of Lords Unlimited. We've got first main phase in that episode where we talk about Magic. We've got we do a draft log. We make sure people get the Magic content, and then main phase 2 is anything and everything. Apparently, we're going to have a choose your own adventure teaching scenario for me teed up, which I'm excited about. I've got a smattering of topics for us to talk about. I think this week we may be even more excited about Lords Unlimited than the main episode this week, but maybe I shouldn't say that. But if you're interested in checking that out, you can head on over to the Patreon page. We can do a week trial of that, see how that fits into your podcasting life, if you're happy to get Ethan and Ben in your ears a second time. And we want to make sure we shout out our new patrons the first week that they join. This week, we're welcoming Colin, Ezra, Morgan, Hazen, and Connor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate your support.
Yeah, cannot say thank you enough. Show is also brought to you by FusionGamingOnline.com, your go-to destination for Magic the Gathering and more. Whether you're chasing down that last elusive rare, stocking up for draft night, or turning your extra cards into store credit, Fusion has you covered with great prices, fast shipping, and a huge selection. If you're in Canada, it's a no-brainer, and even if you're somewhere else, you might be surprised at how competitive Fusion is on price and speed. Check them out at FusionGamingOnline.com/lords and let them know we sent you. That's FusionGamingOnline.com/lords. Great deals, great selection, delivered fast. Get those booster boxes in your closet ASAP. But a note for our US listeners, they can't ship internationally. So US listeners, booster boxes on hold. But if you're in Canada, you need to make up for the US not being able to get those booster boxes. Double, triple, quadruple down.
And to be clear, you can get your singles and that sort of stuff anywhere, just the sealed product, not coming to the US. But, if you're building out a cube, I know like got CubeCon coming up in a couple months, that sort of thing. If you're building out a cube, that's the place to go. Okay, so what's the inspiration for the episode this week, Ben?
The inspiration for this episode this week comes from Sam Pratt, Samp, in our Discord, and also author of the Rough Drafts podcast. So if you're not listening to that and you want some more Magic content in your life, you can check it out. But posted a question in the Discord that said, I would love to hear Ben talk about what exactly he means when he says, quote, intrinsically powerful. It's been thrown around a number of times over the past few sets, and I'm not really sure what you mean by it. Is it basically just the ceiling on a card? Because while things like big monsters or card advantage spells are overtly powerful when they line up well in the game, it feels like it's being used to exclude cards like Galactic Wayfarer, high floor, relatively low ceiling, which to me is an intrinsically powerful card because it's a great rate on a cheap 2-for-1. To give some extreme examples, do you consider cards like Inspiring Overseer and Organ Hoarder intrinsically powerful? And so I think this question got floated in the Discord like I think the first day of school. And or maybe when I was prepping for the first day of school, and I wanted to respond. And so it was floating around in my brain, but it was like, it was a very thoughtful question. So I wanted to give a very thoughtful response. And then I thought about typing up a response, which seemed daunting. And so I kept putting it off. And then I was like, oh, we should just talk about this on the podcast, because I think this concept of like, what is powerful and why is it powerful is like very applicable to how to do well in this format, I think. And so to answer the question of are cards like Inspiring Overseer and Organ Hoarder intrinsically powerful, I think yes and yes. But I also just want to address...
I will dive in real quick just for folks who maybe don't know. Inspiring Overseer and Organ Hoarder are sort of like they are landmark commons. They were the top commons in their respective sets. Inspiring Overseer is 2 and a white for a 2/1 flyer. When it ETBs, you draw a card and gain a life. And Organ Hoarder is 3 and a blue for a 3/2. When it enters, look at the top 3, put 1 into your hand and the other 2 into your graveyard.
Yeah, and I think also we should just talk about the phrase intrinsically powerful. Like intrinsic means coming from within yourself, and I think I'm using the phrase wrong. Like I don't think I should be using. I don't think I should be using the word intrinsically in front of powerful, like after doing some reflecting, because compared to something like Terra Symbiosis, which we're going to get into in this discussion, which is from Edge of Eternities, which is what we were comparing last week in a draft log. We had a choice between Galactic Wayfarer and Terra Symbiosis. Terra Symbiosis is a rare enchantment that lets you draw cards when you put +1/+1 counters on things. That is not intrinsically powerful. If it's not surrounded by other cards that do something for it, it is an F. But its power level ceiling is higher than Galactic Wayfarer, in my opinion. And so, of those two cards, Galactic Wayfarer is definitely more intrinsically powerful because it does what it does on its own and is a better standalone Magic card.
Correct. Well, so that's all right. You've taken away my the whole point I was going to bring to this conversation was like, I think that what you're describing is a type of card. We just shouldn't be using the word intrinsic.
Intrinsic's the wrong word. I've been doing some reflecting.
Have you thought of what your new go-to phrase will be, or your new go-to description will be?
I think I should just drop intrinsically. I think it's like a crutch. I think it's like saying survive, like threat in Survivor or something. Like people just say threat. Like I just want to say intrinsically to sound smart or something. Like I should just say powerful or the ceiling on a card, like Sam references in this question, or like extremely powerful or game warping or whatever. Because that's really what I mean is like some cards get to have an outsized effect on the game. And Galactic Wayfarer is not that in this format. It's a very good card. But that's all it's ever going to be is efficient. Like it's never going to be more than a B-, in my opinion. Like I just don't think that's true. I don't think it can be. Whereas Terra Symbiosis can be an A.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. I buy that.
Okay, so to talk about Inspiring Overseer and Organ Hoarder, are those powerful? Yes. Is Galactic Wayfarer powerful? Yes. But specifically with Inspiring Overseer and Organ Hoarder, both those formats were lower power overall and higher synergy formats, and more of the key cards in those formats were commons than I think what surrounds Galactic Wayfarer in Edge of Eternities. Edge of Eternities has a lot of combos and a lot of individual cards that do some extremely dumb things. That if your plan is like play some cards, play some efficient cards, play some efficient cards, it's very hard to win when somebody plays a game warping card against you.
Well, and your point here is those are both cards, like Overseer and Organ Hoarder are from sets, Midnight Hunt and Streets of New Capenna, that are pre-play booster era. And the way that like not only sort of like the frequency at which you see them in packs, etc., but like commons don't play that role in sets that much anymore. Like we've had the sort of like commons are back in this format, but largely in play boosters, commons serve a role of like synergy support pieces, and those cards can be really powerful, and we're going to talk about some of those as it relates to Edge of Eternities. But I feel like uncommons is where the focus is for power and for those I want to say intrinsic now too, but for those powerful cards, for those cards that are like, hey, on their floor, they're whatever, like Organ Hoarder, Inspiring Overseer.
Yeah, and so all three of these cards, but I think you're doing a disservice to Inspiring Overseer and Organ Hoarder to include Galactic Wayfarer in the conversation with those two cards, because both of those are miles more powerful than Galactic Wayfarer.
They're not miles is aggressive. But those were head and shoulders the best commons in their sets, and Galactic Wayfarer may not even be the best common in this set. I mean, like on its floor, it certainly is, but like we'll talk about the other commons that are in contention and consideration and perhaps punching past it in this format.
Yeah, but I don't think it's crazy, and this is not the point of the episode, but Galactic Wayfarer has a 2-mana tax on it compared to those cards just doing what they do with no extra work. That's a big deal in Magic, but neither here nor there. So I think we're dropping the word intrinsic.
Okay.
But I think if we're talking about what makes a card powerful, this is such a weird distinction because we do need to come up with a phrase, and I'm not sure what it is. But Galactic Wayfarer is a good Magic card. And it is a powerful Magic card. Like it's a 3-drop that guarantees you're going to hit your 4th drop. It gives your body plus a rectangle. The rate is aggressive, all of that. But it's not enough to have an outsized effect on the game.
Well, I feel like I want to start looping in. I know we're talking about these cards a little later on in your notes, so forgive me if this muddies us and we can back off. But I want to talk about it in the context of, or in comparison to, Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle in the format, which are both like they've been sneaky good in the format. And like I think we both saw Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle as top performers even before getting our hands on the cards. But they're cards that just Galactic Wayfarer does not keep going up and up and up for me.
Yeah.
Cryogen Relic and
it's
Virus
gone
Beetle
down. Like, I was too high on Galactic Wayfarer and have adjusted down, and maybe too far, but I don't think so. And Virus Beetle and Cryogen Relic, both of us were hot on, and I agree. Both of those continue to climb for me.
And one of the shout out to the Mystical Dispute Boys, came back after like a 1.5 year hiatus, and they did an episode, Carl and Garrett, on Cryogen Relic versus Cryo Shatter. And
Team Carl, sorry, Garrett.
Team Carl, even with 2 Cryo Shatters. But it's very funny because Cryo Shatter is another card that like came in sort of hot in, and then I was not impressed during early access and wanted to sort of like, didn't want to make our usual mistake of play in early access and think that Snowmelt Stag is the truth. And so sort of tempered that. But I have been pretty steadily unimpressed by Cryo Shatter. And then finally got my hands on Cryogen Relic this week in a real way and listened to Mystical Dispute. And one of the points that they made on that episode, and you should go check it out if it didn't show up in your podcast feed, is just how well it works with every other card. And that's what Virus Beetle does too. Like, Virus Beetle, the reason I think it's the best black common is because of just like, once you have Virus Beetles, all the other black cards you want to put in your deck get better. And some of the black cards that you are on the fence about putting in your deck get better. And the same is with Cryogen Relic. Like, all of these interactions and synergies open up for you. And Galactic Wayfarer doesn't really have that. And so there is a phrase that I feel like we can't just call all 3 of those cards powerful, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like
but they are in a similar way. They're a similar tier of card where they're good Magic cards. Like, they're always going to pull you into their color, but they're never going to have an outsized effect on the game.
But they're not, like, let's think about Heck Dies in Final Fantasy.
Sure. But I'm talking about in this format. Yes, okay. But I agree. Like, if we're talking intrinsic, we know Virus Beetle's not intrinsically powerful because it needs other pieces around it, because Heck Dies fell flat in the last format.
But Galactic Wayfarer is a card. You put that in any set, and it's going to be a B-.
Yes, I agree.
As a common.
Yes.
And Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle are not always going to be B- in any set.
Sure, yes.
But they're like Bs or B+ in this set.
I disagree with that grading.
Really?
But I do think we need to dive into the grading scale.
Okay.
Because I think that is ultimately what this boils down to. Like, when I'm talking about why I want to take Terra Symbiosis over Galactic Wayfarer.
Okay.
Galactic Wayfarer is always a B-. Terra Symbiosis is either an F all the way up to like an A- or something, or an A, like if it pops off. It wins the game when you do the thing. And so I don't think Cryogen Relic, or like, to me, when I grade, and this is how I use the LR grading scale, and if you use it differently, great, but I would just want to be clear about how I use it. I'm pretty stingy with grades above a B-.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I want those grades to reflect past a B-, because B- is pulling me into the color. And I want grades past B- to reflect the impact I expect the card to have on the game.
Okay.
Past that, and I don't think Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle do. That's why I would be hesitant to, like, I really dislike the 17 lands chart. Like, one time I opened 17 lands and it was in that chart form of where it had assigned letter grades based on the percentages. Like, because I just think that's not a helpful way. I think that gets away from, it is helpful in a way, but I think it gets away from the gradations of what limited resources outlines as being assigned to each letter grade.
Yeah. Well, I think we have done we've taken that letter grade and we've tried to mess with it in our own ways. And I think have circled back to it. But I think we really try and draw a hard line in the sand from B- down, like what's below a B-. And I agree, in things that push into very stingy with dishing out A minuses, right? If we think like A's have to be cards that like warp the game, demand an answer, etc. Like I'm not a Swords to Plowshares gets an A kind of person, right? Like efficient removal is not going to get that kind of a letter grade from me. So you're talking about a really a big difference between B minus and B's and B pluses for you.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you can have decks where Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle are Bs. Maybe I don't think they go past a B.
Okay.
Most of the time for me, like with how
Yeah.
I approach the grading scale. And if
That's
like I said, there's different ways to use it for sure.
yes.
But to reference this conversation, but you started to get towards a name for those type of cards, and I don't think we ever got there for Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle.
No, I don't have an idea for it unless, and if you do, please take it away.
I mean, both of those are synergistically powerful. That's
Yes.
a good adjective to put in front of Cryogen Relic and
Mm-hmm.
Virus Beetle. But I think if
And
we're just talking
then,
about power, I want to take a step back from that discussion, and
okay.
we'll loop there in a second. So if we're talking about power, cards that are like B plus or higher, or drawing your line somewhere, wherever you want to draw it. For me, it's around B is where I draw my line, and anything that gets B is pretty darn good. And once you're into B pluses, like starting to be like a real problem if it goes unanswered.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're talking power level, like to me, it's that grading scale and which one either gets a higher grade. Like if you're in a pack one scenario, which one gets a higher grade, and therefore you want to take it because it's a higher graded card, or like just how they are pack one pick one and which one you want to take pack one pick one for whatever reason, right? Because with the Galactic Wayfarer pick, there's also things like if you're in close territory, like if we're talking about Galactic Wayfarer lining up against Virus Beetle and Cryogen Relic, I'm first picking both of those cards over Galactic Wayfarer. One,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they're better cards. Two, because I think they're in colors I want to be in more. But then also, I think I would pick Oblivion Ring ahead of Galactic Wayfarer at this point, which is
Banishing Light, quarter in the swear jar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quarter in the swear jar, crew, whatever, you know. But I think I would pick that also. But that one I don't really think is better than Galactic Wayfarer. That's like getting into, well, I'd really rather be white than be green, and I'm willing to take whatever slight hit there is in power level to be white, to start my draft white instead of starting my draft green. But I think they're cards, and I was using intrinsically powerful to say cards that can single-handedly change the course of a game. And I don't think I should be doing that. We should just say like extremely powerful or game warping cards or whatever. So I'll stop saying intrinsically powerful because I agree. Was throwing that around incorrectly. So if we specifically go back to that pick from last week, the pack one pick one of Terra Symbiosis, which is the rare that lets you draw cards with plus one counters, Galactic Wayfarer versus Servandum, which is the black white rare, versus Faller's Faithful, which is the 2 and a black 3/1 that can blow up a creature, and then if it wasn't dealt damage, its controller draws 2 cards. I think we have the same conversation this week. Like, I still don't want to take Galactic Wayfarer.
Mm-hmm.
I still, if I'm taking a green card, want to take Sarah Symbiosis because it can either be an A minus or an F, and I want to try to hit the ceiling of its A minus. And then Servandum, I think, is just a higher graded card than Galactic Wayfarer, but it gets knocked for being 2 colors. But Servandum is probably like a B plus. Like it's very good.
It's very good.
And then Faller's Faithful, I also think is a higher graded card than Galactic Wayfarer. To me, that's not or a similarly graded card. Like maybe they're both B minuses or whatever. And I just want to be black more than I want to be green. Like I don't think there's hardly any concession at all. And I could even make a case. I think that Faller's Faithful is better than Galactic Wayfarer.
Well, it's synergistically powerful, right? It's on a smaller scale as Terra Symbiosis. Sorry to cut you off, but it's on a smaller scale in that like Faller's Faithful on its own, with if you don't do any deck building work for it, it's like a C minus. Like maybe it'll do the thing. You finish off a creature. Maybe you have something under a cryo shatter and you kill it and you draw 2, whatever. But if you're doing the work and you getting the virus beetles and whatever, like the things that you want to sacrifice, and you've got the perigee beckoners and things to make it work, now we're really bumping up against it. It surpasses the power of Galactic Wayfarer, and so it has this like pretty not a very as wide a range as Terra Symbiosis, but it has a range. Whereas when I look at Galactic Wayfarer, and maybe I'm cutting it short, but when I look at Galactic Wayfarer, I don't see a range. I see a
Right.
card
Well,
that's like this card's like as Sam described it as high floor, low ceiling. Like it's just its floor is very high, but it's never really doing more than that floor.
well, it can though. I think that's what I was trying to ask myself when I was putting these show notes together was, are we being fair to Galactic Wayfarer? Because it also can be synergistic, right? It can be you get the rectangle, you can
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice that thing to the bone splinters in the format. You can and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I think it's best is when you're using the lander token as a rectangle to fuel your self-craft mechan, or you're using the rectangle to fuel that bone splinters card or whatever. And so I do think there is also synergy there. So I want to be fair to Galactic Wayfarer, but I also want to put a hold on that
Okay.
because I think we can get to that a little bit later in the notes. But just talking about what you're talking about right now, which is something being synergistically powerful and surpassing something that is just rawly efficient, where it's just powerful on its
We can
own without.
say intrinsic now. That's what
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
we can
intrinsic.
say
Yeah.
intrinsic. Yeah. Versus something that's intrinsically powerful, like Galactic Wayfarer. Okay,
Yeah.
so correctly using intrinsically powerful for Galactic Wayfarer. What is powerful, I think, changes format to format. What's synergistically powerful changes format to format. Like you said, we could drop Virus Beetle in another format and it might not be synergistically powerful. So
Yeah.
that definitely changes format to format. And also, the format is going to ask different things of you, right? Like going into this, one of my format truths was going to be that I thought card advantage was going to be at a premium before having played with the cards, right? And I, as a result, put that blue uncommon that's the 5 mana instant speed, draw
Mm.
3 cards in my top uncommons list. It doesn't belong there. Like card advantage is not that hard to come by, but card advantage is good. Like you can definitely win games by 1.5 for one in your opponent, 2 for one in your opponent, 2 for one in your opponent, 2 for. That's the kind of card advantage that matters in the
Mm-hmm.
format. But so you have to, I think, dial in on each format what the format wants of you. And I think Edge of Eternity specifically, to allude to your point about what Virus Beetle and Cryogen Relic do for the rest of the cards in your deck, this format wants you to look for high ceilings on cards, I think, because the high ceilings in the format are extraordinarily high. Like stupid things can happen in this format in a game
Mm-hmm.
of Magic the Gathering. And it also really wants you to draft cards that pull up the other cards around them. Like I think the format really wants you to do that. And I think the station lands are a great example of that. The mythic rare station lands. Those are fairly innocuous. Like the red one's really busted and the black one's really busted, but I don't think that's obvious when you read them until you've played with them. But mostly what they do is say, when you want to tap a card, you can. For cards like Nanoform Sentinel, or for the cards that care about if you have 2 tapped creatures, without paying the cost of putting a station in your deck, which is, or a spacecraft in your deck that has to be stationed. You just get that for free, which is huge upside. And those make a bunch of cards go from don't really matter to, yeah, okay, I'll play this card now. And there are, I don't know what the number is, 50 cards, 60 cards that just don't matter in this format. Like the packs are so full of garbage so much
Mm-hmm.
of the time. And if you can get those cards to be cards you're like, yeah, okay, I'm actually interested in this now, that's big game for your deck and for your draft.
And but it's format to format specific, right? Because I feel like there could be another set where we had a Terra Symbiosis type card versus a Galactic Wayfarer type card, and you would prefer to do no work. You would prefer to take the card with the higher floor rather than the card with the higher ceiling, right? Or is that a Ben draft style set to set that is true, or is that an Edge of Eternity specific decision you're making?
I think it's an Edge of Eternity specific decision. That's what I'm saying. Like this format specifically, Edge of Eternities, I want to take Terra Symbiosis over Galactic Wayfarer. And I also think if Galactic Wayfarer were black, I would want to take it more than if it were green. And I think we'll get into that in a second. But so I want to talk about, we've talked a lot about, or I have anyway, and I think you agree with me that there are clear delineations of like tiers of cards in this
Mhm.
format. And you're just trying to play as many of them from as high of tiers as possible for the most part. And so I just want to outline where I think the tier breaks are, which
Okay.
are like top tier would be you're always playing this card and it either has or has the possibility to have a gigantic impact on the game. And so something like, I don't know, Nova Hellkite is always going to have a gigantic impact on the game. That's like top tier. But Terra Symbiosis can have a gigantic impact on the game. And so I want to draft it, try to hit that ceiling. And if I don't, I'm just not going to play it. But giving myself the chance to hit that very high ceiling is awesome. Next tier would be you're always going to play this card, and it's always going to be a good card that pulls other cards up around it. And I think Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle are great examples of cards in that tier, where like they're very good and they're going to make a bunch of other cards better. And I was trying to decide if Galactic Wayfarer goes in that tier, and I think you could make a case for it going in that tier of card. It doesn't for me, with how I'm drafting the format and what I feel like Galactic Wayfarer incentivizes me to do. But I could definitely see making the case for it belonging in that tier, like because of what we talked about. There are things to do with the Lander token. It's like it's a card plus a rectangle. No. But for me, it doesn't, and we'll get into why in a second. But next tier, which is where I think Galactic Wayfarer falls in this format, is you're always going to play this card, and it's always going to be a good card, but it doesn't do much for the other cards around it. That's where I think Galactic Wayfarer belongs. And then the next tier is cards that get better because of those first three categories than they actually are. Where like you hit the cards that are like normally don't want to play, but you hit I'm kind of in for playing this now as a result of some other cards that I've drafted. And that's a big bar for a card to hit in this format. Like if you can get 6 cards that you weren't normally interested in playing to be like, yeah, I'm interested in playing this now. That means you drafted really well in this format, in my opinion. Like something like Nutrient Block. Like if you're turning Nutrient Block into a good card in your deck, I think you're doing some things right in the format.
Yeah.
And that's assuming you're not playing green. And then the last tier would be cards that just don't matter. And I think there's way too many cards in this format that fall into the cards that just don't matter, as evidenced by the 3 sealed pools I opened last night.
Yeah, sure.
So I think the case for why Galactic Wayfarer doesn't belong in the tier of always a good card and pulls up other cards around it. If we look at Galactic Wayfarer, it in its own color, the only card that it pulls up around it at common is Gene Pollinator. And here's why I don't like starting a draft with Galactic Wayfarer. And I recognize that Galactic Wayfarer does more than this. To me, Galactic Wayfarer is an enabler to try to do big things, while also not guaranteeing that you're going to see those big things. And I think you and I agree about this, and we like just assume everybody else understands what we're talking about. Like, I think both Gene Pollinator and Galactic Wayfarer are good cards. And I think they're both synergistic. But they're good cards and synergistic in a way that still then need, for the what green deck I'm envisioning, still need better cards around them for your deck to pop off. So if you're like fighting people for green and you're elbowing around in the green space and you're having to spend high picks on Galactic Wayfarer and Gene Pollinator as a result, then you don't have picks left to pick other good cards, and decks full of Gene Pollinators and Galactic Wayfarers are not a good deck. Like they don't pull other cards up around them once you have those 2 cards. Those 2 cards are very good at making any good card you see great in your deck, but you have to then see really powerful cards.
Right. Well, and I think that point, and maybe this should even go in the text of always going to play this card and it's always going to be a good card, that also pulls up other cards around it in that card's color, I think are important, because if you replace Virus Beetle in that sentence of like, I'm going to take Virus Beetles highly, then once you have Virus Beetles, with the caveat of, and I think all of these are with the caveat of the color is open, but even if you're jockeying for that color, once you have Virus Beetles, how many commons get to be on that list of cards that get better because of those first 3 categories than they actually are? Like, you have Virus Beetles, all of a sudden you're like, I'll play a Swarm color.
Yes.
Right? Like, and Cryogen Relic does the same thing. You're like, all of a sudden, okay, well, that makes my Selfcraft Mechans way better. That makes the thing that taps something on your turn, because then you can tap, draw a card, and then lock it down with the relic, whatever. Like, all of a sudden you're playing cards that need a little work. The cards that need a little work in that color get better. And Galactic Wayfarer, if you look at the commons, yeah, Gene Pollinator, but it's not even that unique of a, like, Gene Pollinator wants 1-drops, wants nutrient blocks almost more than it wants Galactic Wayfarers to be better, you know?
Yeah, it wants those other cards around it. But again, both of those green cards to me, Galactic Wayfarer and Gene Pollinator, are at their best when they're surrounded by really powerful cards of whatever color. Like, that's the thing they do, is they unlock splashing for you in this format, but there's no guarantee that you're going to see good cards. And I think this is where it comes back to, you know, people, we alluded to best of 1 and best of 3 pods last week also. And I do think drafting Gene Pollinators and whatever you want to say, like, we're using best of 1 and best of 3 as slang for best of 1 pods are softer in the draft portion than best of 3 pods are. And I think that's been, like, fairly statistically shown, and certainly anecdotally in my experience is true, that the best of 3 draft pods are, you see less egregiously good cards going late in a best of 3 draft pod on average than you do in a best of 1 pod, like, early in the format. And I think later in the format, a lot of the people drop out of the best of 1 queues, and the best of 1 queues get pretty competitive too at a certain point. But I think in a soft draft pod of whatever queue you are in a soft draft pod, you're going to be able to make way better use of Gene Pollinator and Galactic Wayfarer than you are in a competitive draft pod. Like, at the Pro Tour, if you pack 1, pick 1 Galactic Wayfarer and you pack 1, pick 2 Gene Pollinator, you might not see good cards because everybody's going to have good card evaluation skills. And then the thing that Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle do for you that Galactic Wayfarer and Gene Pollinator don't, in my mind, is what you're talking about. All of a sudden, if you spend high picks on Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle, that unlocks like 4 or 5 cards for you in their color that you actively want, that nobody else should really want, that then you can expect to see later. And that's really powerful, I think. Not only for, like, finding a ceiling that Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle can hit that is higher than that of Galactic Wayfarer, but also in terms of the rest of the cards that are filling out your deck are going to be hopefully better on average as a result of those picks you made. And I don't really think Galactic Wayfarer does that.
Yeah, that tracks for me.
And I think this specifically alludes to, like, a concept. We did an episode on synergy theory that, if you didn't listen to that episode, and it's an article, I don't know if you can still find it, that I wrote for Channel Fireball way back in the day. Don't know if that's still on the internet, but
I think those are available. Yeah.
The synergy theory episode, if you search it in our episode backlogs, I think it would be a great episode to check out. I tried to do what was my very first article that I wrote, and I was like, I want to get this out of my head. Like, if I'm going to get axed as an author of articles, I want to have contributed something to the Magic community. And I tried to do what Brian Wong did for quadrant theory for synergy. I tried to come up with 4 ways that cards can be synergistically powerful. And Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle check a lot of those boxes. And Galactic Wayfarer doesn't, but that's not, I'm not arguing that Galactic Wayfarer is not a good card. It's a good card, but it is an intrinsically good card. And Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle are synergistically more powerful than Galactic Wayfarer's intrinsic goodness. And I would say the same thing is true on steroids of Terra Symbiosis. Like, that has the ability to become an A- and make you interested in cards you otherwise wouldn't be interested in.
So there's another card in the set that I think piqued our interest. It appeals to us. Weapons manufacturing. This is the one in a red enchantment. Whenever you cast an artifact, or whenever a non-token artifact enters, you make this token that, when it leaves the battlefield, shocks something, deals 2 damage to something. I don't think you would put that on this list, or I don't think you would put that on the same spectrum as Terra Symbiosis, right? You've played with the card, and I think you're not that jazzed about it. I don't know how you feel about it. Would you want to pack 1, pick 1 it because it has the potential to be an A? Do you think it has the potential to be an A?
Are you talking about weapons manufacturing specifically?
Yeah, I'm talking about that card specifically. I'm trying to get a sense of, like, where does the like, how do we draw the line? Because there are, I feel like one could take away from this conversation that as long as a card can be an A, I should take it. And I don't think that's what we're arguing.
No, that's not what we're arguing. So weapons manufacturing specifically, would I still pack one, pick one? Yes. Do I think it's right to do so? No. It wouldn't be advice that I would give to people because I
And
think
so what's
weapons
the difference?
manufacturing,
Yeah.
yeah, weapons manufacturing suffers from the same problem that Galactic Wayfarer does, in my mind, is that it needs very good cards around it, specifically one very good card. For weapons manufacturing to be a good card, you have to have Umbral Caller Zealot on the battlefield. And I think if you don't, weapons manufacturing is not that good. Like, yes, you can do the common red 1/2 that pays 2 to tap, sacrifice a thing, but that's infinitely slower and infinitely worse than Umbral Caller Zealot. So I've done the weapons manufacturing thing, come to that conclusion that you need that very specific card. And because you need that very specific card to be alive and on the battlefield, for weapons manufacturing to be good, you can't like reliably turn it into an A at all. You can't reliably expect to turn it into an A. And so I think mostly that's for fun. Terra Symbiosis, I do think you can fairly reliably expect to turn into an A. Like, and it doesn't take a lot, and it's not cards that are high priorities and don't have to stick around on the battlefield. You can play your green X +1/+1 counters and warp it and draw 4 cards, and your opponent can't stop that. Like, enchantment's a hard permanent type to interact with, and the creatures that have counters on them don't have to stick around on the battlefield for Terra Symbiosis to do the thing.
Okay, so it's about the, I don't know, breadth of support that the card has to become an A, where you feel like weapons manufacturing, there's basically one card and it's not even in the same color. And Terra Symbiosis, there's a lot of cards and they're in that color.
Yeah, I think that is a good summarization of it.
Okay,
And I
great.
think some of it too, and it's after experience with playing with the cards too, right? Like,
Yeah.
pre-format, I was higher on weapons manufacturing than I was on Terra Symbiosis. I didn't expect to ever draft a copy of Terra Symbiosis, and then I got smacked around by it several times, and I was like, took the old Marshall LR approach, and I was like, okay, card beat me a couple times, I'm interested, let me try it, and then tried it and was also impressed. And I just think it gets there pretty consistently without that much work. You don't have to draw more than 2 cards off it for it to be a good card, and then all of a sudden it becomes a great card. It's got a pretty low or a pretty high floor if you build around it.
Interesting. Yeah. See, it's very fun. Like, I'm like on board for all of this. I have not seen Terra Symbiosis in play yet. And I am like, every time you're like, it can be an A, I'm like, can it really? But that's neither here nor there. That's not like I'm on board for all of the rest of this conversation and this argument.
Yeah, so I think if we're summarizing
Uh-huh.
this discussion, I think Cryogen Relic and Virus Beetle feed into actual game plans at lower rarities that involve synergy. And I think Galactic Wayfarer feeds into a game plan that involves a lot of higher rarity cards and cards that are actually intrinsically powerful, like which you aren't guaranteed to see late. Like the cards that surround Relic and Beetle, you're very more likely to see late than you are the cards that go well with Galactic Wayfarer. And I think the easiest argument to make against this episode, to make a counterfactual argument, is that Galactic Wayfarer also pulls up other cards around it. And I see that, but I know me. Like you and I can't be anything other than who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And when I take a Galactic Wayfarer, I'm not like, ooh, how can I make this Galactic Wayfarer synergistic? I'm like, ooh, what busted cards can I splash around this? Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
Galactic Wayfarer makes me feel. And I don't want to go after that strategy, especially last week, because I think it's contested. Now, if all of a sudden people start drafting blue and self-craft mechans aren't going pick 6, pick 7, then I might swing back. I might draft Galactic Wayfarer a little higher. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's very much an ebb and flow type situation. So that, and I think risk versus reward in the draft. As a result of that previous statement, I think the Relic Beetle decks are way more likely to be open and come together more reliably. And this is something we haven't talked about of. They're easier to pivot out of in the
Yes.
draft if you see really good cards of other colors. Like if you start your draft with a Cryogen Relic and you're drafting some blue cards and you're blue black and you see a Nova Hellkite, you can dump some black cards and still make a functional blue red deck. If you start green, especially with cards like Galactic Wayfarer and Gene Pollinator, and then you realize green's cut, you have nothing like to
Well,
try to go into other colors for.
but that's not is that a fair comparison? Because you're describing, you're comparing I'm drafting blue, black, and then I dump one of those colors for red. Like, versus I'm drafting green and then green isn't open. That's You're not quite comparing apples to apples there.
Sure. I think it's because green is so monolithic in my brain. Like, green's on an island. Like, all the other colors are doing some things together. And to me, green is doing green, especially like the Galactic Wayfarer Gene Pollinator thing. And so if you're spending high picks on those type of cards, you're not able to switch into another color. What you're stuck doing is like holding on to the green cards, and you've got to play green and pair it with whatever else you did.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, I don't know, I guess you're still scrapping picks, but I just feel like I don't know how to explain that. Do you agree? I think it's really hard to to stop drafting green once you've started drafting green.
I do feel the same way, and I can't quite put words to it though. The best I can come up with is that the things, because I feel like we're talking about the kinds of drafts where you feel like you're getting cut, but nothing is like presenting itself. Because it's easy when you're like, oh, I see a blue-white signpost, pick 5. I guess that means blue-white might be open, and I'll go do that. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about I started drafting cards in a color. That's not feeling open, but I'm not getting a sense of something else being open.
Right.
I feel like specifically with cards like Virus Beetle and Cryogen Relic and the cards around them, that pocket of synergy is still applicable elsewhere. And so if I'm like, well, maybe I'll hold on to this and pair it with something else, or I've just sort of been like taking the best, I haven't had to take any hits in power level. I've just been taking the best cards out of the packs and will continue to do so until a plan forms. Whereas starting with the green cards, I feel like you're like, well, I got to keep taking green cards so I can stay with the Gene Pollinator and the Galactic Wayfarer, because once I'm base green, then those cards are going to allow me to play the other good cards I see, to your point of you're not guaranteed to see those good cards later.
I think that's what it is. I think it is what I'm describing, that phenomenon I'm feeling and describing, is a low powered draft. Like that, if you're in a low powered draft and you pick because that's how all these drafts start, right? Like, it's a low powered draft if you're starting with a Cryogen Relic or a Virus Beetle
Right.
or a Galactic Wayfarer. I think that's the crux of it, is that it's a low powered draft if that's your start. And if it's then Galactic Wayfarers and Gene Pollinators in a low powered draft and you feel like green's being cut, you have nowhere to go, like in pack 1, because there's no good cards at lower rarities that are going to like do some stuff with your Galactic Wayfarer and your Gene Pollinator. But also by that time, you're not going to be seeing like the cards like Cryogen Relic or Virus Beetle that are pulling the other cards up around them. Whereas if you start with the Relic and the Beetle, you know you've got these, and you know you can develop a pocket of synergy around them in a low powered draft, but then also then hopefully see some power and still have that pocket of synergy that's going to be good, plus the power. But if you don't see the power, you can still just build a deck around your Cryogen Relics and Virus Beetles with all these other pieces that nobody else wants, and you can't really do that as easily with Galactic Wayfarer and Gene Pollinator. And I guess that's the green beatdown decks. You can.
Yeah,
Like,
which
to me, that's what that is.
To be fair, neither of us have much experience with the green stompy decks.
But that's probably what that is, and where people are saying that, like, that would, again, if we're making counterfactual arguments, that's probably the counterfactual argument is, no, well, that's when you start taking the 4/4 tramples and the 5/5s or whatever, and you just smack people around with green. And that certainly could believe. I just don't have much experience to be able to comment on that. And that goes back to, we can only podcast about what we can podcast about.
Yeah. And goes back to, that was a conversation we had before we started recording. that was just for me. Okay, this has been awesome to chat about. Should we like, I feel like not only in the abstract, but we're talking about some very specific Edge of Eternities truths for us. Should we dial in and see it in action in a draft? Should we talk about some individual cards? Where do you want to go?
Let's do a draft.
Okay. So this is one from you, yeah? What do we got going on in this pack 1, pick 1?
All right, pack 1, pick 1. See the following cards as options. There's a card I would not have shouted out a week ago. There's a Perigee Beckoner 4 black for a 4/5, warp 1 and a black. When it enters until end of turn, another target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies. Return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. This is the card that I have gone up on the most, I think, over the course of the past week. And I think this card is probably the second best black common now. I think I'm taking Perigee Beckoner. Maybe not ahead of Gravkill. I think it's
crazy.
third. I think I'm taking it behind Gravkill.
Wow. Okay, so first shout out to the many listeners who humbled me, a mea culpa, on the pronunciation of this card. Perigee Beckoner is what we will be referring to it as. Tell me what's going on, because I like this card quite a bit as well, but I don't know if I'm quite as high on it as you are. What has changed your tune on it this week?
I think it's, if assuming you're picking Virus Beetle as the best black common, which I think you should be, it's very good in tandem with Virus Beetle and Sack Owlets.
Mm-hmm.
The warp, blue black is my favorite deck in the format, and the warp as a chunky body for 2 mana to get 4 power on a warp for a spacecraft is also extra juicy. And oftentimes you can push damage while you're doing that with whatever you +2/+0, because the spacecraft wants you to be ahead, and this is very good at pushing damage to get you ahead while also then stationing up your spacecraft. So I think that space is its best home is in blue black, in my opinion. And also the 4/5 body is a chonky donker. Like, it's just big when you actually cast it too.
And that's why Perigee Beckoner is our Fusion Gaming Online card of the episode. That's fusiongamingonline.com/lords. Head on over there, pick up your copies of Perigee Beckoners. That was what I was going to shout out about this card, was how it's just like, oops, I stationed my spacecraft for 2 mana. Like, you dump, it's 4 power, it's 6 power immediately. And so usually you're like, here, I tap my Beckoner, tap the thing I gave +2/+0 to, and now I have 8 stationed my whatever monstrous spacecraft. And like something that your opponent was maybe going like, okay, that's on the battlefield, I'll deal with that in 2 turns maybe if they tempo themselves out. And Perigee Beckoner just says, nope, it's active now.
Yeah, that was my one win in one of my collector's boosters runs. Is Elegy Acolyte the dumb rare? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
The 2 black 4/4 lifelink cheater card.
Yeah.
I faced that down and had gotten it off the battlefield, but was pretty far behind as a result. And I killed it with a Pinnacle kill ship. I'm sure my opponent thought they were safe. And I warped in 4 cards in 1 turn and like crewed up my thing and did some other stuff and killed them in 1 turn out of nowhere, thanks to Perigee Beckoner's warp cost being significantly undercosted. Like, it should at least be 2 and a black, probably, and it would be way worse if the warp were 2 and a black. Like, this card's great because the warp is only 2 mana.
Yeah.
Cryogen Relics in the pack. And moving on to the uncommons, there's a Broodguard Elite. Green X00 enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. When it leaves the battlefield, put its counters on target creature you control, and then you can warp it for green and X. And then there's an Ilvoy Infiltrator, 2 and a blue for a 1/3. Can't be blocked if you've cast 2 or more spells this turn. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Another card that's moved up for me, Dawnstrike Vanguard, 5 and a white for a 4/5 lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tap creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control other than this creature. And then Mythic Rare, Cavaron Memorial World Planet, enters tapped, can make a red. You can station it. Once you hit 12 plus, you can pay 1 in a red, tap it, sack a land, make a 2/2 robot. Then creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn.
The fact that you can do that at instant speed, like, this card is already busted, but the fact that you can just do this on blocks too is incredible. This card is busted. And like, it's very interesting. I feel like it's hard to not want to look at this pack and this draft in the context of intrinsically powerful cards and synergistically powerful cards.
That's why I put it in here, baby.
You're just an excellent content creator. What can I say? And I'm drawn to the mythic rare land, and I'm drawn to Ilvoy Infiltrator as the 2 cards that jump out to me the most.
I agree. That's what you're deciding between.
I don't know.
And Ilvoy Infiltrator in this instance is the more intrinsically powerful, and Cavaron is the more synergistically powerful. Is that what you would say?
That's what I would say, but which is perhaps shortchanging them slightly, because I also think
they're both.
they're both, right? Like they have ceilings, but their floors are also, I mean, I guess their floors are Caverona's a land, and so it's a tapped mountain. It's a pretty high floor. And Infiltrator, 3 mana, 1/3. That's a pretty low floor. But
Scroll Thief, outsized effect on the game.
It's not
but
that
changes the game when it comes down. It's a game changer.
It changes the game. But double spelling is just not, it's not something you really have to work for. Like you're not like, okay, I gotta make sure I take 1-drops more. Like you're gonna double spell in games of Magic. So
you have to, I mean, it does change how you draft a little bit, but I agree, not that much.
I don't know if it needs to. Anyway, I think I would take the land myself, but I think it's between those two cards.
I agree it's between those two cards. To me, this is like similar-ish, and I want to be blue more than I want to be red. Like,
yeah.
Probably the land is a little bit better of a card than the Ilvoy Infiltrator, but
it certainly has a higher ceiling.
It just certainly has a higher ceiling. But I also think Ilvoy Infiltrator has a nuts ceiling. I'm obsessed with Ilvoy Infiltrator. Should I take it here? I would not certainly fault anyone for taking the land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say we have the Ilvoy Infiltrator, or if you want to do the land, we can go through it. But I don't think it really changes this pick. But pack 1, pick 2. See the following cards as options. There's Virus Beetle. 1 on a black, 1/1. Enters each opponent, discards a card. The uncommons, there's like a Monoist Sentry, black 4/1 defender at uncommon. You're not taking that here. There's Honored Knight Captain. I've liked this. 1 on a white for a 1/1. When it enters, make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and you can pay 6, sack it, search for an equipment card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
Have you searched?
I've not searched. I just think the 2/1 bodies is good.
2/1 bodies is good. You can pick it up with the 3 mana 2/2 flyer and white to get another 1/1, which is nice. But I've also gotten myself an auxiliary boosters at instant speed. Just go boom, surprise 3/4 flyer.
Ooh, yeah, that's spicy. Yeah, I've also liked it with Swarm Color and Black White. I think it's at its best in Black White, but for just a good card, I think.
Yeah.
And then your rare Diadrin Synthesis Amalgam, green white X for an 0/1 trample, enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Whenever you attack, you can remove a +1/+1 counter from each of 2 creatures you control. If you do, draw a card and create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token.
Yeah, I'm taking Virus Beetle out of this pack.
That's the decision, right? But it was hard. So do you think it's right to take Virus Beetle? So
yes, I do.
Why? Can you talk to me about that? Because this is back to, again, synergistically powerful versus actually a powerful card. Virus Beetle is insanely synergistically powerful and unlocks a lot of things for you in the draft. Diadrin is a much more powerful card. Like, Diadrin is, if you are green-white, it is what? A B+? An A-? It's very good.
Yeah. There's a couple things happening. One is like, I don't have a lot of experience with I think there's a couple things. One is that Diadrin it also needs synergy, because for you to get the second chunk of text, you need another thing with a +1/+1 counter on it, which Correct. Isn't air quotes hard to do in green white, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to have something else with a +1/+1 counter on it. I'm just not a huge fan of the +1/+1 counter stuff. I haven't done it much myself, but the larger point here is just about what this pick lets you do in the draft. If I take Virus Beetle, I just hate taking gold cards early in this format. And I don't like taking a gold card that denies me access to my first pick, which I like, which is Ilvoy Infiltrator. If I take Virus Beetle, a number of things can happen. I can play both of those cards in the same deck, right? Ilvoy Infiltrator and Virus Beetle will both go in a deck together. I can find out that blue is cut and black is open, and I play Beetle and drop the Infiltrator. I can find that blue is open and black is cut and drop the Beetle, whatever. If I take Diadrin, my first 2 cards are not going in the same deck. Like I'm already making my life hard, right? I'm already saying I have to choose between drafting blue, X, or I have to choose to push down green, white. And Diadrin might be a powerful enough card where that's worth doing. In my mind, it is not. And I don't want to put myself in that position where I know I'm already going to give more weight to Infiltrator.
Is it my time for rebuttal?
Sure.
I was never on the debate team. How does that work? Does somebody say, your turn, go?
Me either. I'll hit the chess clock for you. Go for it.
So I think there's a world where you could be green, blue, splash, white, and Diadrin could still be a very good card for you. Like, you get the +1/+1 counters from Selfcraft Mechans. Green's got a lot of +1/+1 counters running around on its own. And I think that is a good enough card that you would want to splash, and green gives you the tools to splash. I don't think it is a foregone conclusion. I think you are making your life harder, to your point, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that you can't play those two cards in the same deck.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair take.
So, and the other thing I think that you're not, like, your argument's very clear, and I understand everything about your argument and feel similarly, but I just want to present the other point of view. What if green white's open, or what if green's open past this point, like, and you passed Diadrin? Like, that's a huge opportunity cost missed there, right? Isn't that the whole Ben Stark drafting the hard way? Like, what are the chances that green white flows, and is this card good? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is a really close pick. You're gonna be really sad.
Yeah, you're right. I think,
like, can you put grades on these two cards for me, like on the LR scale?
I don't.
Just for the sake of argument, I'm not trying to.
I think they're pretty
set
close.
you up to be wrong.
Like I told you, I think I would give Virus Beetle a B.
A B.
And
Diadrin's
a B plus, I guess. Like I said, I've played with the card maybe once. I haven't seen it a ton. I haven't really seen it pop off. Like I don't know. The card doesn't read. It's not a bomb to me, and so that it's a B plus at best.
I agree. It's not a bomb. It's either a B or a B plus. Probably a B, but it's a very good B. Like, if it goes unanswered and it has an attack, which it likely does if it comes down on curve, which maybe it's not going to if you're splashing it in a green blue space splash white deck, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
It's best on curve on like 4 mana or something. When it's a 4/5 trample and you've played something else with a +1/+1 counter and you make a robot and you draw a card, it feels Elegy Acolyte-esque when you hit that scenario. Now, it's way more narrow than Elegy Acolyte is, but does have a high ceiling. Diadrin, to me, is a better card than Virus Beetle, but it is also way more narrow and takes some more work, like, to all of your points.
Yeah.
I wanted to take Virus Beetle here, like, in my heart, and I was like, that feels like irresponsible drafting. And so I did take Diadrin, and I regretted it the whole rest of the draft.
Well, I think that's sort of I don't know how to quite come up with
quantify it. Yeah.
The argument that you were making of like, well, what if green white flows? You can't draft like that. You can't draft. I don't think you should be making picks based on, like, yes, if green white flows, Diadrin is the right pick. That's not drafting. Drafting isn't making picks based on a scenario. It's making the best pick with the information you currently have.
Which is none. This is pack 1, pick 2, right? So we're still in the stage of the draft in this format. We're big proponents of take the best card out of every pack in this format, and good things will happen for you early on in the draft.
Right. But I think these cards are close enough, and
close enough that Virus Beetle leaves you way more flexible. That's the sticking point, right? Is that, like, how close actually are Virus Beetle and Diadrin in power level? Whether that be synergistic or intrinsic or whatever, but, like, ultimately there is a total power level of a card, like, from all of those different metrics. And I'm buying into your argument that they are closer in power than I wanted to believe. And if that's the case, I do like the Virus Beetle pick as not only something that I wanted to do, but also something that is more defensible than I think I thought in the moment.
Yes. It's funny. I shared a draft log that we'll probably touch on in Lords Unlimited, where I also had I had Virus Beetle versus Galactic Wayfarer pick. And I wanted to take Virus Beetle, but I was like, this is probably irresponsible to do. Like, I'm probably like avoiding green too much, and also had a rest of the draft regret about Virus Beetle.
No, like, Virus Beetle is top tier in this format. I think it and Cryogen Relic are the two best commons for me.
Yeah.
And so interesting that they're on different polls. But took Diadrin, I can't say that name. Pack 1, pick 3, see the following cards as options. So we've got Ilvoy Infiltrator.
I remember. I watched this draft on stream. Yeah.
So pack 1, pick 3, see the following cards as options. There's no commons in consideration, as is common in this format, unfortunately. Move on to the uncommons. There's a Galvanizing Saw Ship. That's the 5 and a red 6/5 flying haste spacecraft when you station it for 3.
I'm
There's
kind of
tragic.
out on that card.
Yeah, I'm also out on that card. There's Tragic Trajectory, black for sorcery, something gets -2/-2. If you void it, it gets -10/-10 instead. And your mythic rare in the pack, Weft Walking, 4 blue. When it enters, if you cast it, shuffle your hand and graveyard in your library, then draw 7 cards. First spell each player casts during each of their turns may be cast without paying its mana cost.
Talk about ceilings.
Talk about ceiling. It's got a very high ceiling.
Talk about ceilings. I want that ceiling, and I would take Weft Walking here.
So I think this is interesting.
Yeah.
This is like, and this is about what you want to do in the format and what's good in the format and all that sort of stuff. I think this is like a really good draft per the conversation we had earlier in the episode. So when I took a Diadrin, I was shooting for a higher power level deck, like a higher. Each card stands on its own and is a great Magic card type of deck, and splashing a bunch of good cards. That's what I said I wanted to do when I took Diadrin, basically. Over Virus Beetle. And if you take Virus Beetle, you're saying, no, I want to play a smaller, more synergistic game where I'm eking out advantages and choking the opponent's resources, just building up the cards around each other. And then here, I made the opposite pick of what I did last time. And I knew what I wanted to do last time too. In the last pick, I wanted to take Virus Beetle and had convinced myself that it was irresponsible, and then went down that same path anyway, which is where I think. So after taking Diadrin, the card that makes by far the most sense to take here is Weft Walking, because Weft Walking is at its best when you're doing big things. And even if the opponent slams a banger for free, you're also likely to be able to slam a banger for free. Weft Walking in blue-black, the kind of blue-black decks I like to draft, Weft Walking is a much more dangerous card to cast when the opposing side is a green deck.
Quick pause.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share a Weft Walking deck with you in our Discord that I had. A blue-black Weft Walking deck. The curve, other than Weft Walking, stops at 4. It is a low curve. It has Ilvoy Infiltrator. It has Virus Beetle. And Weft Walking was nuts in this deck. And I think it was because I had a lot of removal, like a double grav kill. So I had I just turboed through my deck, Weft Walking, shuffle back in, oops, all action, and was able to answer whatever my opponent was doing for air quotes free. I don't think Weft Walking takes a lot of work.
I'm going to say, much like every other time you've shown me a deck pick,
what?
I'm going to say every card in here is almost a first pick. Of course, Weft Walking was great here. Your
Not
card
true.
Your card quality is through the roof. Grab Kill, first pickable. Elegy Acolyte, first pickable. Code Crackerhound, Faller's Faithful, Ilvoy Infiltrator, Dubious Delicacy. Everything at 3 and 4 mana is a first pick. You have Beetles, Relics, Umbral Collar Zealot. This deck has 12 to 15 first picks in it.
But you could have started the draft with 3 of these cards: Ilvoy Infiltrator, Virus Beetle, and Weft Walking. I don't know.
You're saying if we've gone Infiltrator, Virus Beetle, that the pick is still Weft Walking.
Correct. I think the pick is Weft Walking. Yeah, regardless of what you have done in the first 2 picks of this draft, I think Weft Walking is too powerful to pass, too big to fail.
Too big to fail. Okay,
I'm calling Weft Walking.
Okay, noted. Note taken.
Yeah.
And then I think the draft gets less interesting after that. You get your Virus blue black, but the deck really wants every Virus Beetle it can get its hands on.
For sure.
Obviously, as it does when you play black.
It does. Shall we give a quick stock up, stock down list before we roll out here?
Sure, let's do it.
Well, I want to talk about All Faith Scroll, the namesake card for me for this episode. This is the 3 mana rock, taps for a mana of any color, and you pay 7, tap, sack it to draw a card equal to the number of differently named lands you control. I think there is a good Mardu, Esper, a non-green, slightly splashy control deck in the format. And it's largely because, if we think about the kinds of things you could do, specifically with Dragonstorm Globe plus Caustic Exhale as that 1-2 punch of I'm doing nothing but I have removal, Focus Fire lets you do that. So white, I think, is a real key for, so it's basically a white-based control deck that wants all Fate Scroll, and it's because Focus Fire is so good at letting you still do something proactively or reactively, as it were, when you're playing the All Fate Scroll. And it's not hard. Like, I'm still basically thinking of it as a two-color deck. Two-color deck, maybe a light splash somewhere. And that's thanks to Scroll and maybe some landers finding some stuff. But there's also just like, you get a shock land late or whatever. And like, I'll play Watery Grave when I'm white-black as a tapped swamp or a shocked swamp, so that it'll turn my All Fate Scroll on at some point. And having access to, even though it's an expensive, clunky draw 3 or draw 4, having that in those decks is really nice.
Yeah, I'm picturing it with the Focus Fire and as a control deck. I'm seeing what you're putting down. I'm a believer. Yeah. I'm interested in trying it.
And it's not like, again, it's not a game plan A kind of strategy, but it's a really good off ramp if like your draft is whatever. So sometimes you're super deep in a color and you've got your toes dipped into a number of different secondary colors. Then I'm like, ooh, it would be really nice to get like some landers and an All Fate Scroll here, and then I could just cherry pick the best of those other colors cards.
Right, so it's almost a way to play a multicolor green deck without being green.
Correct.
Yeah, which is, I think, got the Focus Fires around it, and yeah.
Which is not what Dragonstorm Globe did, but it is what Starting Column did for you in Ether Drift.
Correct. And so are you also then interested in that terrible land that taps for a mana of any color in that style of deck? Command Bridge?
It depends. If I have 2 scrolls, probably. If it also just depends on like how many. Do I have some nutrient blocks to tap for it? Do I have things where it doesn't feel egregious? Is that my turn 2 play? I don't know. I'm not thrilled about it. I need more like a second scroll or a Survey Mechan, something else that cares about differently named lands before I'm like, okay, I'll play Command Bridge.
Okay, that checks out.
All right.
Other cards on this list. Weftblade Enhancer, which is the 5 and a white, 3/4 ETB, put 2+1/+1 counters on things, and then you can warp it for 2 and a white. I'm slightly up on that. I've been impressed with that card, like in some aggressive white decks.
You love the counters. You love +1/+1 counters. That's what I've learned about you. Terra Symbiosis, the green-white rare.
It's a really supported
It's a terrible
deck.
Takeaway.
A terrible takeaway is that I love +1/+1 counters. I like winning games of Magic, and I think those are ways to do it. I'm non-discriminatory in how I choose to win games of Magic. That's not true. I hate green, right?
Yeah.
So Cryo Shatter, we talked about this. Slide it down on that. That's the single blue. Something gets -5/-0. It becomes tapped or whatever. It just doesn't get the thing off the battlefield. It's not Swords to Plowshares. There are a number of cards that are highly problematic with Cryo Shatter on them, and black decks just have the resource to sacrifice then. It is efficient, and it lines up very well against green decks. Like, it has its moments. I'm just slightly down on it overall.
Yeah.
Caveron Turbo Drone. This is the 2 and a red, 2/3 artifact that can tap to give something +1/+1 and haste. You shouted this out, but I've finally done the thing. It's just pretty nice when you're warping cards. Like in red-black, giving a Perigee Beckoner +1/+1 and haste for 2 mana while also doing the other sacrificey stuff is really nice. I've liked Caveron Turbo Drone.
I faced it in red-green, like beat down warp as well, and it's just like they warp in the 3/2 that puts a counter on something. They put a counter on their Caveron. They haste in the warped 3/2. Like, it packs a punch.
Next is Biosynthic Burst. This is 1 and a green for the put a +1/+1 counter on something, and it gets trample, reach, indestructible. Am I forgetting anything?
Not hexproof.
Not hexproof.
Doesn't give hexproof.
Doesn't give hexproof. But I don't think this is a reactive trick, right? I think this is the card that stood out to me the most when I opened 17 lands for the second time, like prior to recording this episode. It was up there. Mm-hmm. And I think per your assessment, if a card's high up in the data, it's got to be pretty good. And then we just need to figure out how and why. And to me, again, I don't have much experience on either side of the battlefield, which is odd, usually. But to me, it's got to be proactive, right? Like you want to be beating down, forcing your opponent into bad blocks, and then using this as your trick. It's not a good reactive trick. I mean, it can be, but the fact that it doesn't give hexproof to stop like grav kill or things like that is problematic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my experience with the card has been facing it, and or what I should say is facing my opponent doing a lot of mousing with 1 and a green up, and so I can only assume they have Biosynthetic Burst. When they are sorely disappointed that Banishing Light and Depressurize and Grav Kill and Tragic Trajectory and the blue bounce spell and the blue top or bottom spell, etc., does not save their creature from. So I'm not a huge fan of Biosynthetic Burst, with the caveat of I have not played green beatdown decks.
Oh, it also untaps it, right?
Yeah.
So you can use it on blocks. That's the thing. Like, I've gotten got by it sometimes when opponents are casting it into 5 open mana, which is also super sus. But I think it is undeniably, per our list of trigger words, performing well in the data.
Okay. That's it for me. I'm out. All right, how can I sell you on Gravpack Monoist? The 2 and a black 2/1 flyer dies into a tap 2/2 artifact.
Can't be done.
Okay, can I use the P word? Can I say it's performing well? It's up there, top 10 commons.
It is hard for me to buy. I will say the thing that I saw it do for you multiple times. We streamed a little bit together, and I watched your games a little bit.
You were in a mood yesterday.
I was in a mood. Yeah, we got it all out before the episode, which is good because nobody wants that energy here on the podcast. And it's because I hadn't played Magic, so I had all these pent up takes from reading the Discord and things. I had to get the energy out before we did the serious podcast. The thing it did for you that I saw that I was not giving it credit for is that it's really annoying to get through defensively.
Yes,
like it clogs the board up quite nicely. I don't think you're particularly interested in sacrificing it, but you can. I don't think you're particularly interested in attacking for 2 in the air, but you can. Like, so maybe all of that in total adds up to a fine card.
I mean, with your boy Perigi Beckoner, like, it's really fun to go warp it in, attack for 4 in the air, and then sack it and get my free 2/2. Like, it's just good.
All right, you're selling me.
It's not just
I haven't done it in terms of Perigi Beckoner yet.
It is synergistically powerful.
Okay.
And that's what Black does. Like, all of Black's cards are just like, yeah, but once you have this, then this, then this, then this. Like, it's so.
All right, I'm sold.
Right? Yeah.
I'm sold.
And last on this list, an Aniform Sentinel, 2 and a blue 3/2. I know we talk about this every week, but like,
it's so good and it's so much fun.
Feel like
it's the most
underrated.
Unique card in the format. I think it and Perigi Beckoner are the 2 most unique cards in the format.
Yeah. That, like, what I just feel like for both of those cards, I'm like, it slices, it dices. Like, what can't it do? It turbo stations, right? Tap a thing, station with another creature, station with Nanoform Sentinel, untap that other creature, get a restation. You're just like, there are so few spacecrafts that aren't going to be online at that point. It ramps you. I have had like attack with it, float a mana, untap, then use all that mana, or like cast something pre-combat, attack, untap, cast another thing, like, and turns Tractor Beam into control magic as if Tractor Beam needed to be better.
Yeah, Nanoform Sentinel is juicy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Real last thing, I wanted to float this by you because I've been thinking a lot about Spacecraft, because I really like even the ones that like don't have ETBs. And I know we talked, now week 3, we'll talk about the Sariema, the 1 white 5/5 flyer, station 7, searches up a legendary. I have now played that in 2 decks that had 0 targets for it. And it's just good because it's a 3 mana 5/5 flyer that, to your point, will then also maybe boost up some other cards that want to be tapped. Sledge Class Seed Ship is the 3 mana 4/5 flyer that, like, Elvish Piper something into play, station 7. Doesn't have an ETB. I keep playing with Entropic Battlecruiser because its stats are in the dumpster and people keep passing it to me, and the card is broken every time I play with it. So why are these spacecrafts without ETBs good for me? And I started because I was like, okay, we're trying to think about them as vehicles or battles. And I think the real thing that they're doing is, I think the real comparison is Convoke, is what I've landed on. Is that like, it's not that you're crewing it or whatever. Like, you're using your creatures to cast an extremely ahead of rate card, right? You're getting a 4-mana 3/2 Death Touch flyer thing with the additional cost of tap 2 creatures, tap 3 creatures over the course of whatever turns.
Spacecraft or Hogak, you heard it here first, folks. I don't mean, I think this is a very interesting way to frame it. I'm not trying to belittle your argument at all. And I know that was very undercutting, but
I just was watching you not listen to me and only think about like, wow, what can I say?
I was listening. I do think that's a very interesting way to frame it. It's also Convoke of a creature of a certain size.
Of a certain size, for sure. I was having I went to a paper draft this week, and I was playing against a guy who's in this group, but he plays Commander. He doesn't really ever draft except for when he comes to these paper drafts that we do. And he had the Seriema in his sideboard. And I was like, oh, do you not have any targets for it? And he was like, no, I do. I have like 1 or 2 or whatever. I was like, he was like, I just don't think it was just so, I was finding it so hard. He clearly didn't think the card was good. He had not played with Spacecraft yet, right?
Yeah.
So he had the experience many of us did where we looked at these and we're like, these cards stink. And even if I'm playing this as a tutor for something, like, is that good enough? And it was really hard. Like, I didn't want to be that guy who was like, you should put this in your deck. And like, I was like, you do what you want to do. But I was like, it's really hard for me to be like, I've actually played this card with no targets and it's good. Like, I don't know how to explain that to you because without seeing it. And I sort of wish that I had been like, it's kind of like Convoke. Like, you would pay, like, you're getting a 3-mana 5/5 flyer, which is insane. And so, yeah, you got to pay a little bit of extra
Convoke
work.
2 cost.
Yeah.
But also that you don't have to pay up front, which is nice too. Like, it's a more flexible mandatory Convoke in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. I really like this set. This is, for me, I think if Ether Drift, which I think Ether Drift is my favorite set of the year, I think this is a second. I am really liking this format.
More than Final Fantasy.
Yeah, more than Final
Fantasy. Hot take.
I don't know. I like that signals are clear. I like that fixing isn't abundant and like you have to be intentional about your mana bases. I like that I get like the thing that I like to do, which is grindy Mardu decks, is actually a good thing to do. And yep. I think Spacecraft is a fascinating mechanic that like, just like the things you have to think about in games with Spacecraft of sequencing and tempo. I'm like taking some tempo away here so that I can regain it later when I attack with this big flyer. Like, I don't know. I think the format's really good.
We were on a game where you played the Seriema and several turns with the Seriema very differently than I would have. And it was interesting to see what you were doing and why. Yeah, it was cool.
Can you say more about that?
You were way more like, it was about the macro picture of the game. Like, and I thought we were basically at parity or maybe even ahead. And we had a choice to play either the Seriema or affect the board with, I don't remember what. It was the Void Forge Titan, yeah. We could have either affected the board with Void Forge Titan or played the Seriema. And I felt like it was so clear that we were supposed to play Void Forge Titan because that affected the board and made it to where we were like probably still at parity or like more ahead. And when you chose to play the Seriema, I was like, this feels horrible because now we're definitely behind, and Spacecraft don't want you to be behind. But then you caught the tempo back up. It's like what you're alluding to here. You're sacrificing tempo that you know for certain you're going to be regained later if you have a board. And we had the board. Like, you were already treating it mentally almost as a 5/5 flyer.
Yes.
And I was not willing to do that, I guess. And so it was just interesting to see like how much you were thinking about it as a 5/5 flyer. Like, you thought you were affecting the board the turn you played the Seriema. And I was like, oh no, man, I don't know if we're affecting the board.
Right. Well, I knew I was, but it's sort of like vehicles. Like, you always, like, if you can get the vehicle in play now, it makes every subsequent
creatures are going to be better. Yes. Yeah.
And the same thing is true for that, where you're like, I'm not affecting the board. You're like, yeah, but next combat, this is attacking as a 5/5 flyer.
Yeah, next, you're not affecting the board then, but every subsequent time you affect the board, it's more impactful.
Correct. Yeah. I love Spacecraft. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I think this is a super interesting episode. I'm sure we'll get a lot of feedback about it. And on that note, we're going to end things. Thank you, as always, to Salty Pretzels for our intro and outro music. Make sure you give it a listen.
You can find all our content at lordsoflimited.com. We've got our tier list, our episode backlog, our links to our YouTube channel, our Twitch streams, respectively, our merch store, and our Patreon page. All of that at lordsoflimited.com.
If you've got any feedback about the show or any questions, shoot us an email at lordsoflimited@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Lords of Limited.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.